Is this what day is this?
It's Mail It In Friday.
Yeah, well, the dude abides.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Well, it truly is a mailed in Friday, mailed in long weekend edition of OverDrive because here we are. Mark Roe in for Brian Hayes. But let me tell you, to the audience on TSN 1050, TSN 2, on the TSN app, this show has integrity. And the proof of that is Frankie Corrado and Jason Strudwick are my co-hosts. So all is not lost. I'm pretty sure they don't have a criminal record, unlike someone that we're going to talk about for the next 3 hours. But boys, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to get to work with you on the Friday of a long weekend. How we doing?
Buddy, I just got to say the honor should be ours. Like you're Mark Roe, and we get to work with you.
I am Mark Roe. That's true.
And I got to say, like, This is exciting getting to work with Struddy. I can't help but think that if I got to work with Struddy at some point in my hockey career, like if he was my mentor, my D partner, I might still be playing instead of talking to you guys. But it's better late than never. Here we go. I get that mentorship now from Struddy.
Where would you be playing is the real question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. I don't know.
Your career might have been shorter, Frankie. Let's be honest. I need to play. I wasn't the guy you wanted to play with. You wanted to go deep into your career.
Well, as I alluded to, we'll get into Scottie Scheffler and what happened at the PGA Championship, and Mark Zecchino is going to join us at 4:30. But I did want to bring up something quickly off the top of the show because tonight we have the Bruins and Panthers. And did you guys see the fire alarm that went off at 2 p.m. this afternoon inside the Florida Panthers team hotel?
No.
At 2 p.m., I see on social media fire trucks outside the hotel. I got to think that is prime nap time for you guys, right?
Oh, it's massive.
That's strategic.
Oh, it is for sure. And I tell you what, I'd rather have been woken up in the middle of the night than during my pregame nap. I loved those pregame naps. I'd snuggle in. I'd go in there, put the blinds so it was completely dark, crank up the AC. Didn't matter if it was minus 30 outside or plus 30, and then just crawl into that wrapper like a big bear for hibernation. And I loved it. There was a fire alarm one time at Long Island at the, the Long Island?
The Marriott.
Yeah.
It's right next to the rink.
The fire alarm went off, and I didn't answer. I just kept sleeping right through it. And then I came out later, like an hour later, and the police like, "What are you doing in here?" I'm like, "I didn't hear the alarm." And I got up, I showered.
There's a fire.
I had a pregame the snack before you go on the bus, and I walked out like nothing happened. And they're like, "What are you doing? You could have died." And I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm okay." And I just walked right on the bus and went to the game. It was nothing different.
Buddy, you bring up a good point there, though. When you're on the road and you get into that hotel room, you could be in Winnipeg, you could be in Florida. The first thing you do is hit that thermostat and put it at like 67, and it's a complete ice bucket in there. Wow. But it's the best for napping.
The verge of getting a frostbite. That's when you know you have it just right. Not quite getting frostbite, but just where it starts.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's about 100 degrees inside the studio right now. As I sit here alone, I've asked Doogie if we can change it, and he said we'll get on it. So I don't know.
That's 2 to 3 business days.
You know how things run here at TSN.
That's next Wednesday.
I don't know if that was Hayes leaving last night and jacking it up and saying have fun, Roe, or not, but that's fine. Hey, I'm comfortable. We got a lot to talk about. I want to get into the PGA Championship because Scottie Scheffler, he is in contention for another major this year, despite the fact he now can say he has a mugshot. At 6 o'clock, he was arrested. He was charged. He was released about an hour later. We should point out that this was about an hour after there was a fatality. One of the workers for the vendors at the tournament was unfortunately killed in an accident. There seems to be just a mess when it comes to transportation in and out of Valhalla Golf Club. But Scottie Scheffler just finished his round. Do we have the audio lined up of him? Here's what he had to say about preparing for today's round while he was under arrest.
I don't really know. I feel like my head's still spinning. I can't really explain what happened this morning. I did spend some time stretching in a jail cell. That was a first for me. That was part of my warm-up. I was just sitting there waiting, and, I started going through my warm-up. I felt like there was a chance I may be able to still come out here and play, and so I started going through my routine. I tried to get my heart rate down as much as I could today, but like I said, I still feel like my head's spinning a little bit, but I was fortunate to be able to make it back out and play some golf today.
So in the history of golf, how many guys have stretched in a jail cell and shot a 66?
Zero. Here's the thing. A lot is made out of sports science and all that entails. When a guy says, I did spend some time stretching in a jail cell and then he went out and shot 66, there's a little bit of sports science that you can throw out the window there. Like, this guy was doing hip openers and leg swings in an orange jumpsuit, and then he went out in a major tournament and he shot 66. Like, this will never happen again. And everyone has, if you play golf and you have a crew of buddies and you go on golf trips, everyone has the story of, we got in at 4 a.m. and we had the 7 or 8 a.m. tee time, and I don't know how this guy rallied and he made it. I don't know, like, no one has the story of, I was in a jail cell at 6 a.m. and then at 10 a.m. I teed it and I shot 66. Yeah, maybe you do, but I don't think so.
It's crazy. But what's funny? So I was trying to read and understand what happened, right? Obviously, it's, there's a lot of things. There's unfortunate fatality. And it sounds like Scheffler was trying to get around and get into the venue to play the game. Then, the guy, the officer reached in, and then he started driving. Like, it's a little bit blurry. But when I look at him, I don't see Scottie as anything close to aggressive. Like, do you envision this guy even raising his voice ever? Yeah. And so it sounds like he's pretty aggressive in trying to get in there. And I get you're trying to get into a tournament, but it doesn't seem like him. Like, if it's someone else who's a little more intense, like Rory, I think Rory would just drive over people to get into wherever he wants to go, just push them out of the way. But is Scottie that guy? I don't see it, guys. I don't see him as that aggressive person.
Yes. Patrick Reed, he would take no prisoners, that guy.
Yeah, fair point.
John Daly would have turned around. He would have been like, all right, I'm gone.
Well, he
goes straight to Hooters.
It's not meant to be.
Straight to Hooters. Sorry.
John Daly did turn around today. He withdrew from the tournament. But that was for another reason. I think it was like a wrist problem or something. But according to the criminal filings, or the police report, I should say, the officer was dragged and he went to the hospital with some injuries. They keep bringing up the fact that his pants were beyond repair, like that
$80 pants.
Yeah, I don't know what dry cleaner did the forensic study on that or not, but that's fine. But why? Like, so it's funny. Anytime I have filled in for this show, I always get a million mentions because you get tagged and everyone has an opinion on why are you hosting and where are the main guys and blah blah blah. For this story, I don't know how many comments I've gotten. Strudwick and Noodles, I'm sure they had tons of stories about going to jail. Like, I don't know why. People just assume that you guys have gone on all these benders and you ended up at a police station.
We were pretty calm. Like, we never crossed the line. Like, that was never our thing. But I'm not going to say our nights weren't long, but they were never like spiking like that. Like, we never ended up in jail or anything like that. And definitely, I was just trying to vision myself. Let's say this was Game 7 of the playoffs, and you're trying to drive into whatever arena, MSG. Mm-hmm. I just can't envision myself being that angry that I would do what was apparently happening here with Scottie. Like, I'm just like, hey, you know what? I'm actually here to compete. This is my name. Can you maybe reach out? Some way we can get me in there, faster? Can I leave my car here or whatever? Like, I would think there'd be a way through. I just don't understand why this had to happen, especially it was 6 a.m. I just don't. Yeah. I don't understand how Scottie would do this. Like, was his tee time at 6:05, 6:06?
I actually don't know what time his initial tee time was at, but there's stories, Struddy, and this was a little bit before my time in Toronto, and I wouldn't have put it past someone that played on, like, my team the 2 years I was there of doing this. The traffic to get to the Scotiabank Arena around, 5 o'clock, 5:30. We would do 7:30 p.m. Puck drops when I played. So that means you're trying to get there at 5, let's say. It was so bad because the Gardner, the highway, it converges right there. So depending on where you were coming from, it was impossible to get into the parking garage. And that's if there was, like, just volume. That's like no accidents, just volume. And there's stories of guys having to leave their car and walk on foot to get into the arena to make sure that you're there on time. And basically telling the equipment guy, like Bobby Hastings or whoever, it's like, my car is on Front Street or it's on Lakeshore, and someone needs to go get it because I left it there. And I had to walk the rest of the way. Like it's happened more than a few times.
Really? Wow. I can believe it. And it's not exactly getting any better downtown, but that is the story right now at the PGA Championship. Colin Morikawa has the lead at 11 under par. Mark Zecchino is going to join us about 20 minutes. He is at Valhalla Golf Club. So we'll get the latest on what's going on in round 2 of the PGA Championship and also his thoughts on Scottie Scheffler making a little detour this morning, getting back to the course. And surprise, surprise, right now he is 2 shots off the lead. We are 10 minutes and 50 seconds into the show, which is probably 10 minutes and 50 seconds longer than I should have taken the time to ask Struddy. How's everyone in Edmonton today?
Oh, man, that was a tough one. You know what? You look at the game. I honestly thought the Oilers played a good first period. They were really moving the puck well, getting up the ice. And then the Canucks kind of clicked. Something clicked in the second, and the Oilers couldn't keep up. You know, is it that their big guns were fatigued? You know, that playing 25, 30 minutes for, you know, whether it's Hyman or McDavid or Leon, did it catch up to him last night? Because the first period I thought the Oilers did really well. But after that, the Canucks took over. And they won the game. They deserved to win the game. They outplayed the Oilers. The best line for the Oilers is arguably their fourth line. And why they didn't get more ice time, I'm not sure. But, yeah, it's tough now. You know, they come home. I'm sure they won't do any – those top guys won't do anything. I don't think they even want them walking. Just sit there and drink Gatorade and refuel the body and get ready to battle tomorrow night. But, yeah, I don't know what you guys thought of the game, but I thought the Canucks were way stronger the second and third period, and that's probably the best the Canucks have played through the 5 games that they've played.
Yeah, I thought in Game 1 when Draisaitl went out, the Canucks really picked it up at 5-on-5, but I don't think we saw that since then. And last night, the Oilers, it felt like the Oilers had a push to start the third, and they were applying a little more pressure. But there's like this matchup between JT Miller and Connor McDavid has really turned into something. I don't know if you saw the stat today. So it's just over 47 minutes at 5-on-5 that those two have played head-to-head. The Canucks are winning that match 2-0. And like it's Miller who scores the game-winning goal last night. It's McDavid's guy. You know, there's another great visual of, you know, Miller essentially bear hugging McDavid off a faceoff all the way up the ice. Like this guy, JT Miller, his number one priority is to be all over McDavid and not allow him any space. And McDavid's number one priority is trying to get away from this guy. But Miller's winning that battle right now at 5-on-5. And that's like Rick Tocchet did a really good job of making sure that matchup stays intact. And that was, I get they're fatigued, but the Canucks looked good. And that JT Miller matchup is a big reason why.
We know what I think also contributed to this win. 0 for 5 on the power play for the Edmonton Oilers. That was a different approach.
What happened?
The Canucks on that penalty kill. They were so aggressive. And you could tell that what the Oilers like to do is they like to have Connor McDavid bring the puck up. He gains his own, and then he throws it back to Bouchard or across to Leon or whatever. And then they get complete control. The Canucks didn't let that happen. And I thought that was great. Now, it could go the other way sometimes, but for 5 power plays in a row, it didn't go that way. And they were ultra aggressive. They just couldn't get that setup where they had time and face the guy or face the defender with some space and time. They couldn't get it. And I thought that was a huge thing because the Oilers had, multiple chances to score in the power play. Yeah. And they weren't able to. If they get one, it might be a different game here, guys. We might be talking 3-2 Oilers.
For sure, but that's the danger with the Oilers is that they go 0 for 5, they don't get the power play goal, and now you're stuck having to win that game at 5-on-5. And you can't do it. And so, are you a little bit of a one-trick pony in that way, where the Canucks they're a good team at 5-on-5. And last night, a lot has been made, Struddy and D. Rowe, of the depth guys. They need the depth scoring. So you got one from Kane, and you got one from Janmark, and then the Canucks got one from Soucy, and they got one from Di Giuseppe. So, the depth guys for both teams contributed. And then it was JT Miller out of the star players who gets the one that makes the difference. So it's not like on last night's game, it's not the It's not the depth guys that are the issue, but that's a one-off. That's going to happen. Like McDavid and Draisaitl, they're not going to have it every single night. And I thought Calvin Pickard played really well. All things considered, that was a good game for him.
So how well would you play him again for Game 5, an elimination game at home in Edmonton?
Well, what's your other choice?
Well, that's
like you're either going back to Skinner, like you're going back to Skinner and hoping that he's like refreshed and reset and he's rejuvenated. But what if he's just been like wallowing in it? What if he's kind of throwing himself the pity part? And I don't know the guy, right?
Sure.
But like guys do that where it's like, woe is me and it didn't go well and I'm never going to get the netting. I don't know. That's where you got to have like a gut feel on the personality of your guys. But I don't know.
Tough to go away from a guy who's only given up 5 goals in the last 2 games.
And you know what, you could, there's maybe a little bit of pushback. Maybe Dietrich goal is a bad goal, but I mean, honestly, I think in that case maybe Bouchard wasn't quite as diligent as he should have been, moving that puck quickly and maybe sensing the pressure.
Like,
so it kind of just comes up and happens. But I'd go Pickard. I think he's more than anything. If you're just looking at what he's done, he's earned the right to that net Saturday night.
I agree.
And he's played well. He's, like you said, 5 goals against. He's made some really good saves. The save off of Niels Höglander, who I really like as a player, but maybe isn't completely loved by Tocchet. I thought that one off the post. He got a little bit of pad on that.
Yeah.
Goes off the post. So I think he's earned the right. And I think, Frankie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you got to give guys a chance who've earned the right to continue to play, because that sends a message
100%.
to your team.
100%. And the other thing, it's like, so now you look this right down the barrel. If you're Knobloch and the Oilers, you saw the Canucks go to their 3rd string goalie and have success. And for a while you were like, you're going to live and die with Skinner, and he's going to be the guy. And then you saw that success happen with the 3rd string guy in Vancouver. And I wonder if a little bit of that fear shifted, and you looked at it and said, if they can do it with a 3rd string guy, surely we can do it with Calvin Pickard. What are we really that afraid of? So if you've made that decision already and you've lost that sense of fear, why not just keep rolling with the guy? You kind of know what you're going to get. Unless he has an absolute stinker, you know what you're going to get. But the other thing about the Canucks study and the penalty kill, it almost felt like there was a mindset within that group where they said, if they're going to score on us, but if they're going to score on us, they are really going to have to earn it. We are not going to let them stop and set up. And we're just going to go full throttle. And if they're going to beat us, they're going to have to beat us under pressure, under duress. And that was the same at 5-on-5 as it was on the penalty kill. And that's where that different mentality is. It's like, if you're going to get beat just being uber aggressive. And at least you can live with it that way.
All right, Game 6 goes Saturday night. We'll get into that series. Plus, the Bruins and Panthers tonight, and the Rangers advancing to the conference final. And once again, Frederik Andersen is a storyline in a Game 7. All that coming up, but next, Mark Zecchino joins us from the PGA Championship. This is OverDrive on TSN 1050 and up on TSN 2.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Hey. Whoa.
Welcome back to OverDrive. Mark Roe sitting in for Brian Hayes alongside Frankie Corrado and Jason Strudwick. Not every day that I get to sit in for Brian Hayes. Not every day that you get to talk about the world's #1 golfer spending some time in jail, then going back to a golf course and doing what he's been doing all year, and that's shooting under par. In fact, it was a 66. He's right in the hunt to win his 2nd major this year. And joining us from Valhalla Golf Club is our golf analyst, Mark Zecchino. And Mark, here you are, just trying to cover a golf tournament. You're trying to, find all the storylines of the 2nd major of the year, and you got to go through police reports, and you got to look at mugshots, and you got to figure out what really deems pants that are beyond repair as Scottie Scheffler spends time in jail, gets back to the golf course, and shoots a 66.
Yeah, it's really, guys, one of the most bizarre days, if not the most bizarre day I think I've had covering golf or being around this game for, a few decades now. And, I'm obviously here with Bob and Graham, and Bob's been doing it for a decade more than I have, and I'm not so sure he's been through something this strange. And it's so strange because of the all the different emotions we went through today. It started off with, early this morning with a loss of a human life, and we're all, startled by that, and saddened that, this was going to hang over the golf tournament. Obviously, you worry about the family. It kind of puts everything in perspective. And then, 45 minutes after that, the best player on the planet is getting arrested. We don't know if he's going to play in this golf tournament at all. And it's crazy because if this was just a normal day, if none of this happened and we were just looking at this leaderboard right now, we could still do 10, 15, 20 minutes on the incredible stories on this leaderboard and the big names making a move, and, Xander Schauffele trying to, get the monkey off his back, Tony Finau in the mix, Scottie Scheffler going for back-to-back majors. Rory McIlroy going to be playing this afternoon, trying to move up this leaderboard. There's so much to dig into, so much to unpack, but it seems to get completely overshadowed right now for the moment, and likely will until tomorrow afternoon.
So, Mark, when you're on the property or you're going to the property and you hear that this has happened, you must be talking to everyone there. What's the chatter among the players, the caddies, whoever has a little piece of what happened? What's going on there? What are all the conversations like when this happens?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think if you were to ask me Monday after Bob and I came in for the week, I would have told you that there was going to be an accident or a problem this week. I have felt like the footprint of this tournament and the size of this tournament has outgrown this property. One way in, one way out. I saw pedestrians crossing highways in the rain, apparently doing this at all hours of the morning where light is not that great. I am not surprised that we have had a problem. Now, no one could have anticipated the size and the the size of the problem we had. I don't think we would have said a fatality and certainly somebody getting arrested. Nobody saw it coming. But I'm not surprised that we've had a problem. And then to kind of back up your question as to what people were talking about, what people were saying, there was mass confusion. Some players were actually directed by police to do exactly what Scottie Scheffler did. Now, that doesn't erase the fact that he did not take instructions from someone who was an officer. Scottie has suggested and stated several times that he was unaware that it was a police officer. He didn't realize that he was being waved down or directed by an officer. So not to excuse the mistake or anything, but that's kind of what went down. But multiple players did exactly the same thing. Multiple players were directed to do the same thing. Multiple players have come on the property all morning, whether it was on the ring or whether it was in their press conference after the fact, described the scene in the area as chaotic, confusing, suggesting that the whole atmosphere of the place, including the officers, volunteers, and security on site, were already in a chaotic state and a little bit frazzled because of what happened 45 minutes earlier. Obviously, everybody not in the best frame of mind, bit on edge when somebody is in a fatal accident. So the whole thing just sounds to me, if you piece it all together, like a recipe for disaster and a recipe for a problem, and that's what we have this morning. We got everything. We got more than we thought was coming, that's for sure.
Mark, the exchange between the policeman and Scott sounds pretty aggressive, at least from what I read. It seems really out of character for him. How do we kind of see, what we see of the player than what we read? How do you kind of link those two together, or do we?
And there's the problem, or do we? Because the police report, in comparison to the eyewitness accounts, as well as any potential video that has leaked, they do not line up. It also doesn't line up with Scottie Scheffler's account in his post-round presser. It talked about how great the officers were, how pro-police he is, how one of them stayed with him and calmed him down, that he was just disheveled and confused. So what the police report, or what we've been able to read or patch together online and whatnot, versus what ESPN reporters and eyewitnesses saw firsthand this morning and the rest of it, there is a disconnect here. One of these things does not make sense. One of these two sides of this fence is, I'm going to say, in my opinion, don't know anything, not telling the truth. Something's wrong here. So, we just heard from Scottie Scheffler. We just sat in his entire press conference. His account of this is a misunderstanding and had nothing bad to say about anyone in the Louisville Police Department. So, something's off here, guys.
Mark Zecchino joining us from Valhalla Golf Club. And Mark, the second round is underway, or we're in the middle of it. So I know we got to let you go. So we'll leave you with this. If there was, considering he came in as the favorite, if there was going to be sort of a bump in the road, you would think this would be it. And he goes out and shoots a 66. So with all that being said, is this his tournament to lose?
Well, I think it was his tournament to win or lose before we even got on property. And to your point, now getting through this today, getting through the turmoil of what went down this morning and the lack of opportunity to get ready. He spoke in his press conference about stretching and starting to get ready in his jail cell, trying to get his heart rate down. If he could get through this, we certainly expect this is still his tournament to lose. Is he going to go out and get it done? He was my pick from the beginning. He's still my pick. There's some great players on top playing well. And this golf course right now is kind of gettable. It's easy. It's going to get wet again tomorrow. So an easier layout, I think, makes it, it doesn't necessarily separate the cream, rising to the top like it does in maybe some venues where it's brutally difficult, where maybe a Scottie Scheffler and all the tools he brings from the tool chest can separate him from the field. I don't know if that can happen here. This is feeling like it could be the great equalizer, the fact that it's so soft and so gettable. But that being said, I think we'll all be shocked at this point if Scottie doesn't have an opportunity late Sunday to get one hand on that trophy. He's going to be part of the storyline. Whether he gets it done or not, time will tell. But he's certainly still the favorite, and I still think he's the guy to watch for with 36 to go.
All right, Scottie Scheffler currently sits 2 shots back of Colin Morikawa, who shot a 65 today. He, at the moment, has the lead. Again, the second round is continuing on TSN from Valhalla Golf Club. Mark, it's been a crazy day for you, and it continues, so we really appreciate you taking some time to join us.
Thanks, guys. No worries. Enjoy the weekend.
There you have it. Mark Zecchino, our golf analyst, the host of Golf Talk Canada, joining us from Valhalla Golf Club. He was on the morning show with the guys, and he was really going after the fact that the golf club this tournament is almost outgrowing, the golf club itself, and he doesn't believe it's ever going back to Valhalla, especially in the wake of what happened today. And
how could it?
Yeah,
how could you bring it back there when you don't have the infrastructure to get in and out of that thing? Mm-hmm. Like the build outs now of these golf tournaments are so much more grand and spectacular than they've ever been. Like, did you see what they've got going on in Hamilton this year for the Canadian Open? Like, there's a serious build out, and this is a major tournament. So as much as we want to get to these courses that are great in the United States, like, it has to make sense for a spectator and the vendors and all that kind of stuff. Like, that kind of has to come a little bit now before the course itself and what that entails.
Yeah, it's wild. And I don't know about you guys. Like, my wake up is around 6 o'clock because of the kids in my house. Frankie, I know that you're living that as well. Strud, I don't know if it's the same in your house, but the arrest happened around that time, and you're kind of half awake and you're looking on social media, and with AI and everything, my initial reaction is this isn't true. Like, I'm a cynical to all of this. It's like, there's no way, especially Scottie Scheffler is arrested. Like, Strud, you've been saying it all morning, like, the most low key, and maybe that's the problem with golf right now, is that the best golfer in the world is too low key, and there isn't enough controversy around him. How, of all players, is he the guy who is getting a mugshot?
Yeah, well, first off, if I get up at 6 a.m., that means I've slept in for an hour.
Oh, here we go. Here's the hero. Okay.
Well, listen, you guys are asked the question, I'll answer it. Like, don't ask the question, I want to know the answer.
Okay.
No, but you know what? I just look at it, and so you're right. I got up, and I get up, I look at Twitter or whatever it's called now, and like Scheffler, there's, unfortunately someone passed away, and you're trying to kind of piece it together over your morning tea. And like, what is going on here? Like this, and this is what happened. This is this kind of disjointed. Then you see some video, then you read the report, and it's just not fitting together. So I'm glad that Mark kind of said that. He's like, maybe we can't link the two together because what is being said happened by one group isn't the same by what actually did happen. And it seems really confusing. And you know, what I go back to, it's a golf tournament. Right? Like this isn't, something that, is really explosive in nature. It's like it's a bunch of people just hitting balls around the course and the rest of us are just watching, having a couple Bud Lights. Like it just seems so out of character for the sport, the place, the players, the people involved. Like that's why I think it's just unsettling a little bit for me, Franklin.
Well, and you know what? So there was a professional golfer on Twitter today basically explaining that, when his name is Michael Kim, the professional golfer. He basically explained that when there's like traffic and guys have to get to their tee times, they get police escorts. It's the nature of it. Like they have to get to the course at a certain time, and it's sad what happened, and we have to keep that in mind and all that kind of stuff. But Scheffler is probably thinking, okay, like when this has happened in the past and there's a jam situation on the road, it's like we kind of do have a little bit of like a get around to that, and it's almost like an understood thing. It's like, okay, this is the nature of what we do, and so maybe that's why he just proceeded along. Is like, okay, well, they're going to see it's Scottie. I got to get to Valhalla. I got the tee time, and all is good. Obviously, wasn't the case, and things certainly escalated from there. But I thought that was like a good little piece of insight. Like Struddy, I don't know if you experienced this when you played, but we always got this in Florida because we would stay down in Fort Lauderdale. The arena's in Sunrise, and if you got to get there during rush hour, it was police escort to get to that arena because the traffic was so bad. It would take you an hour and a half. Instead, it would take 25 minutes. Like we got that every time we went down there. It's pretty normal in professional sports.
It is. I think, though, the challenge is that they're all individuals. They're not all in one bus trying to get into this place. So they're trying to park their car, and it just seems really complicated. I actually had that in Europe a few times, with the rivalries. And we weren't able to leave one building in Switzerland for 2 hours. We had to stay there because we had won a game in another place. And I went to walk out, and the guy's like, no. You stay here. And the fans were going crazy outside, throwing chocolate at us. No, just kidding. But, it was all the Toblerone I could eat.
I love this place.
No, this is great. And watches. Nice watches.
Yeah.
These guys cranking out nice watches. But, yeah, no, it is – it is pretty cool when you have a police escort because you do just blow through everything. I do like that, although I haven't had it in a number of years now.
It's similar to tennis. Like going to the U.S. Open, players get a Mercedes or a Cadillac, and we're on the media bus, which is only slightly better than the public gets in terms of in and out of the Billie Jean King, National Tennis Center there. And there was one time where they wouldn't let our bus leave, and we're sitting there, and eventually there was a car with a huge escort, and everyone's like, "Whoa, what's that?" And the guy looks over, Serena. So
Come on.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay,
dude. And you know what? Like, I don't know. Like, there's going to be comments like, "Oh, what a privileged situation to think you can just do that." It's like that's kind of like it kind of goes with the territory. Like it is what it is. These guys are at the top of their profession. It's like they got to get there in time. I don't know what else.
We're not talking everyday life
like,
here. We're talking about going to the tournament and the logistics.
It is what
of
it is.
Yeah.
But they are the show. Like they are the show.
Yeah.
Without them, you don't have it. Like they wouldn't not let Beyonce get to a concert.
Right.
Like she is the reason that we're all coming there.
You've been to a Beyonce concert, Struddy?
I've been to, yes, I went. It's you know what? My wife wanted to go, and we went.
Oh, here we go.
Outdoors, Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. It rained, and I love the song "All the Single Ladies." I just love that song. That's the only song I know, and I was waiting all night for her to play it. And I think they just sample it or they sprinkle it in. Mm-hmm. And the problem was that we was all women, and myself and my wife and her friend and her husband, and then everyone's dancing. And you can imagine, I'm not the most graceful dancer. Was I dressed nicely? Yes, I looked great. But once I get the body moving, it's not moving well. And it started to rain, so now I had a wet T-shirt contest going on. It for myself, it was a disaster. She didn't play it all night. All the Single Ladies was not played.
This is my bad because we're 40 minutes into the show, and clearly that was the lead item that we should have got to. Jason Strudwick going to a Beyonce concert.
She put on a great concert. The Queen Bee is amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Okay.
I didn't take you for a Beyonce guy. That's all. It's just I'm not surprised, but I kind of took you for more like a
Swiftie?
Like, no, not a Swiftie, like a Motley Crue, Def Leppard, like, that kind of, I pictured you there.
I like it all. I like it all. Like, so I've, the Queen Bee, you got to, sometimes you have to go do things with your wife, right? That she enjoys.
Yeah.
But to stand there and dance when everyone else is dancing so well, and they know every song to every word. And I just keep trying to mix in all the single ladies, and like, it's a wrong song. It was bad. It was bad. Even, So
just do a quick turn so no one can see your mouth moving.
Yeah. Well, everyone is singing. They know she's amazing. She's an amazing performer. She gave it. Oh man, did she dance hard.
Okay. Well, we can get more into that throughout the show. We do need to take a break. We could be on the verge of some major news when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is fitting because Brian Hayes isn't hosting today's show. So we should have seen that coming. So we'll have that coming up. Mail It In Fridays, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to Tide Bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beer is always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. Overdrive continues after the break on TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Let this play, D-Roll. Let Struddy have his moment.
Now put your hands up in the club. Just broke up. I'm doing my own little thing. You decided to dip.
We just need him on camera. That's the only thing.
I want to see his dance move.
What a
He
song.
still got it?
So good.
Needs a couple vodka sodas first.
Maybe a
Remember
little
when
shoulder
Justin
move.
Timberlake danced to this on Saturday Night Live?
No.
He had the high. Oh, Frank, you've never seen it. He's dancing in high heels and just like her. It's kind of I think, if I remember correctly, it's a black and white video, and she's kind of like punching the ground in high heels, and he did the same thing. I think Justin Timberlake, like, he's my man crush, the way he dances. Yeah, I wish I could dance like that. Oh, man, could you imagine sliding around the dance floor like Justin Timberlake?
Did you when you were going out back in the day and you saw you saw people that knew what they were doing on the dance floor?
Right.
Were you a little were you a little envious of that? Like, that guy, he's got something that I don't have in the toolbox.
Not a little. I was a lot jealous, right? I was so jealous of these people. You could see them moving around. Scott Gomez. Sure, he's not the best looking guy, but we'd go out together and this guy would be dancing on the floor. He was unreal. It was like watching, just perfect symmetry, moving around. It helped that he was really short, right? But he was moving around the dance floor. It was so good to see.
How does Scott Gomez feel about you saying he's not very good looking?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've told it to his face. I think we'd all agree. I mean, like, he's not a model. Like, it's not that I'm sitting here and saying I'm, Bradley Cooper.
But you don't have the build to be a good dancer. Like, a bigger stay-at-home defenseman is just not going to be a good dancer. You got size 15 boats for feet. You got long arms. You're like, it's hard when you're wavy.
Hey, we're talking to Jason Strudwick here. He can do anything he wants to. I saw him knitting during the winter. He's become a great broadcaster.
Yeah.
Like, you still have a lot of years ahead of you. Like, anything you want to do, I've been told you can pretty much do it. You're just one of those guys that can pick up things. Like, I don't know if you play the
just
guitar.
Because you try doesn't mean you can do it. I went to a wedding one time with my wife. This is after we'd married a few years. I was working the dance floor and feeling pretty good about myself. And I came back to the table. She's like, "You're dancing like you've been attacked by bees." And I'm like, talk about a deflator, right? Just walk right over to the bar. I'll take a double of anything. I don't care what. And I was done. Off the dance floor for the rest of the night.
Are you the Elaine? You're the Elaine Bennis. You're the Elaine Bennis dancing.
That might have been an upgrade.
That's what I am. That's what I look like. I'm not going to lie.
dancer?
I'll shoot you straight, man. I can't dance. I have no interest in doing it. I just want to stand there with my drink and do a little head bob. You know, there's the movie. You know the movie Hitch. Remember when he's telling him, like, you just keep it right here, none of this. Like,
Right. Stay in your
the
zone
best advice
kind of
I
thing?
ever had. Yeah.
For a while, I went through a big Saturday Night Fever phase. I this is a long time. I had the VHS and I had the poster on my wall when I was playing the minors. So when I came home one year, I started calling around to various dance studios and saying, "Hey, do you offer classes on how to dance like John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever. And they're like, are you serious? I said, yes, I am serious. I called a half a handful, and they all said no. Talk about
I would have thought that's a prank call. I would have hung up the phone and said, this dummy keeps prank calling us.
Yeah. You were called this once, just leave us alone. I'm like, I think it'd be fun. It'd be fun to try to be able to dance like that. If you haven't seen that, watch him dance in that show. That is just pure beauty.
That's
pure
elite.
Perfection.
That's someone who's never skated before saying, I want to be McDavid, right?
Yeah, it's like seeing McDavid skate, Austin Matthews shoot.
Yeah.
How
tough is
it's
that?
Fantastic. Noodles order a round of drinks, just perfection.
Yes.
Perfection.
That is elite company right there.
Yeah.
Now, how tough is it to coach Austin Matthews in the Maple Leafs? Because it seems like we could be on the verge of a new coach here in the city. A lot of reports, like Pierre LeBrun was on the show yesterday, and it's gaining more traction that Craig Berube at some point will be named the 32nd head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Frankie?
Yeah. Okay, so like this is where it was headed. Like it sounded like it was going to be Berube, maybe Todd McClellan. I think this is a good thing for this group. And in the past, this group, whoever's been calling the shots here, things have changed from year to year, and it felt like they never really leaned into one thing aside from Core 4 is going to be here. Like outside of that, there were things that came and went here, whether it was signing like the older guys who needed to be the babysitter leadership guy. They always had that. Then it was, we're going to go as skilled as we possibly can, no matter how big or how small, and that's who we're going to have. Then it went away to, we're going to trade for Nick Foligno, and we want Kyle Clifford, and we want, then this year it was like the snot kind of thing. So as much as the Core 4 stuck around and they leaned into that, they didn't lean into a certain identity around that. And with Craig Berube, if this is the coach that they choose to bring in, they can lean into a couple things here. One of the things they can lean into is we're bringing in a winner. And whether his track record the last few years is out of the playoffs, lost in round 2, lost in round 1, lost in round 1. But you go back to 2018, 2019, he's a champion and he won. So you can lean into that. The other thing you can lean into is we are preaching a culture change and accountability for this group that they haven't seen before. So those two things would lead me to believe that it checks enough boxes with this group that you can lean into those things and not only just justify the hiring, but maybe find a way to get your group to a different level. But there is one thing that is still looming over this. If you bring in Craig Berube, is that the big change? Is it just that and everyone's coming back to run it back again, personnel-wise, player-wise? Or is it just one of two or one of three significant moves that needs to happen?
Yeah, well said, Frank. I think, Berube has a track record and he'll have the ear of the players, but the players have to also move towards him. So I think Berube is going to say, this is how we're going to do things and play and look at the group, but they also have to come towards him and understand that there's going to be changes, right, in the way they do things, and not just on the ice, maybe off the ice and all that kind of stuff. And then Craig and Treliving have to get together and figure out, okay, what are the holes in our lineup and how do we plug them? And maybe what do we subtract to add? So I like the timing of this for the team because this gives them a lot of runway to the draft and then free agency to figure out what they want to do and have conversations, not just with players, maybe with agents. I know that says it doesn't happen, but it does happen. Then even with, what's the coaching staff look like? Is Guy Boucher running the power play again? And I haven't heard if he's coming back or not, but are they going to change that up? And are they going to be open to those types of things? What happens in net? Like, there's so many decisions to make. This, to me, is just a starting point. It's like in Monopoly. You cast the dice, and they've just started. Now there's a whole lot of work to do. Treliving is going to be very busy, very busy.
I think that's the hope. I think that would be the hope, Struddy, is that this is just one thing, and then we're going to see the cascading effect after that. Because if it's just Berube and everyone else is back, and it's going to be the same kind of configuration of things, how much is it actually going to change? You're just going to hold guys accountable. Maybe you're going to sit guys. Maybe you're going to talk to them differently. Like, is that really going to change the fact that in the playoffs the offense dries up, or the power play in the playoffs dries up? Like, and the other thing with Berube, as much as he's won and he's going to hold guys accountable and he's not afraid to kind of tell guys how it is. probably still going to need some kind of like X's and O's voice behind the bench. Like they're still going to have to be that guy because, you talk to guys that played for him, great coach, great guy, all that kind of stuff. Like there probably still needs to be that complementary piece of, the tactician, let's say.
Well, and I'm already reading before the hiring is even official that here's a guy who might not be around for a long time. And that's not to say he's only going to be here for a year or two, but we've seen coaches who come in and make a difference immediately. And maybe they do reach the final goal, but they have a shorter shelf life because they're more demanding than other coaches. And regardless of how long the contract that he gets, and I'm assuming that the Maple Leafs are going to offer the most money and the longest term because that's the sort of resources that this team has. But Berube is in it to change things right now. And don't be surprised if they do have success, but he's also out of here in 4 or 5 years.
Right. And 4 or 5 years is a long time.
That's a long time.
That's an eternity for a coach.
Okay. Like 3 or 4 years, I don't know.
2 or 3.
That's like 3 different shades of hair color. 4 or 5 years for an NHL coach. You go through 3 different shades of hair color in that time.
Okay.
And I think Peter Laviolette is a good example of that, where it's like 2-3 years, you see the difference, and then by the end of it, it's like, all right, we got to bring someone else. But I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in with the point to completely shock the system for this group, and I think that would be a good thing if he did that.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to keep our eye on that as reports are coming out that he'll be named the new head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it's obviously not official at this point. And we'll continue to get set for Game 6, the Bruins and the Panthers, and how much the fire alarm going off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is going to affect the Panthers, and maybe Brad Marchand returns in the series. He is a game-time decision. That's all coming up. Chris Johnston, our hockey insider, is going to join us in the second hour as OverDrive continues.